All right, guys, welcome back. We have episode 7 here, Mac Dad Games, Medieval Dynasty playthrough. Let's keep on rolling, man. Let's keep on rolling. So, where we left off, we just got into the first day of fall. We're finally into the second half of the year, and we're finally getting close to the end of our first year. And I'm pretty proud of what we've accomplished so far. We've already cleared out the cave once, tackled some bears, got our excavation shed up and running. We got 4 houses in total with our 3 workers. We got our food storage, our warehouse storage, resource storage, the wood sheds. Like we're doing pretty good. And again, they only have gone through 2 seasons to accomplish all this. Could people do it faster? I'm sure, but again, I'm trying to do this as efficiently as possible and as effectively as possible. And hoping you guys are learning a thing or two as we're kind of going through this. So I think where we kind of left off, like I said, the first thing I want to, I honestly, I don't know if I'm going to work at this right away because again, I do know and am familiar with this quest that once we go over there and we check it out, the note is basically just going to be asking for more fish. So I'm going to save that till the end of the season. I think that'll just make sense, and we can kind of have it ready to go right into the next season, right? And I think by the winter we should have it done entirely. But the next thing I really want to jump into here is honestly looking at getting a farm set up. Not up and running, basically, but like I mentioned in one of the first videos, that you can only place your farms north to south or east to west. So they have to go in this kind of, square direction. They can't go diagonal or anything like that. So if we're trying to build it on a hill here, right, if I pull out the hammer and I go to putting down, a farm or a field, I should say, like if I'm looking on my compass, to go southeast, it won't it's not going to go like that, right? You can see the line is lined right up with east or south, west, north, the same thing there. So it's like you can only go in this kind of direction. You can't do it diagonally or anything like that. We kind of have to build it around the area. Now, personally, because again, a lot of my village I want to have down there, I think it would look so freaking beautiful and really cool to have the field essentially be alongside this entire hilltop, basically. I mean, a good chunk of it, that's for sure. Because the fields, you can get them pretty big, pretty fast, and they will absolutely take up a lot of room. Like, even just for example, let me see how far I can, if I place like this field just right here and run all the way across, I can go 16 blocks each direction. So 16 blocks this way. I mean, that's a pretty long distance, and then you can have a whole another field going along this way. So of course I don't, want to go overkill with it, but the way that I've always liked to play it is your main things, are gonna be of course your vegetables. I think I can actually, if I pull this up and go over the field, I think I can just kind of go through it. So in the spring here, your main things are going to be wheat, oat, and flax. Those are the top 3 of your grains that you're going to want to get, made. The wheat and the oat, very, very useful to have, for later in the game, in the windmill, creating flour. They're also useful for creating animal feed for the animals, so very, very important. The flax, 100% is going to be used to make clothes in the future, right? Just like in real life, you can make linen threads out of this stuff. And that's also going to be a very easy way to make more money once we're getting into this middle part of the game. On top of all that, another big important thing is beetroot, onion, cabbage, and carrots. Poppies, to me, honestly, I've gone through many playthroughs and I've never planted poppy. There's only like a few things I think in the game that you really need it for. I could be wrong. I mean, I know it is involved in some cooking and I think some potions and stuff like that. And I have been trying to incorporate it more, but just not prioritizing it in a big field. But these big 3 right there, I want a big field for those. I usually like to have as big of a field as possible for flax alone, and then 2 other fields for wheat and oat, and then sometimes even, of course, another 4th big one to really put a lot of like the main, guys like the beetroot, onion, cabbage, and carrots. But then I'll have a bunch of other little ones that I can have those in as well. Because there are 4 other things here, but as you see, they don't get sowed in the spring. If we jump over to, excuse me, the summer here, The only thing that can get planted in the summer is going to be cabbage. And personally, that is actually useful because you could plant cabbage in the spring and you can harvest it in the summer and then plant it again in the summer and harvest it again in autumn. So it's like back to back. It only takes one season to essentially grow, which is really, really nice. Then when we jump over to fall, that's another important one. You can do wheat again and you can do rye. I personally do never not ever do wheat in the fall because if you see, it actually takes 2 seasons to grow. You plant it in the autumn, and then it grows for the winter and the spring, and then you're harvesting it in the summer. But then when you're harvesting it in the summer, there's only cabbage you can plant in the summer. So I feel like you're just wasting a really big field. Whereas I'd rather be using those big fields for rye and handling the wheat in the spring, like you just saw. Because rye is only takes one season to grow. You're planting it in autumn, grows throughout the winter, and boom, you're harvesting it in spring. So now that same large field you planted all the rye in is now available for you to be planting wheat, oat, and flax in. So that's kind of the way that I've run through it. And then the winter, you can actually plant carrots, funny enough. But kind of the same problem you run into, right? You plant it in the winter and then it grows throughout the spring and then you're harvesting it in the summer. So it's like that could become, I could have like one plot be for my cabbages and my carrots in the winter, right? Because if I plant cabbages in the summer and then I'm harvesting them in the autumn and then boom, come winter time, I'm planting a bunch of carrots and harvesting those back in the summer to plant more cabbage. So there's ways you can kind of work around it. But ultimately, what I've always found and what I shoot for is just having as many fields realistically as possible, and that just really helps. So what I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to shut up a little bit here, and I'm actually going to take down a lot of these trees. This is probably going to take me 5 to 10 minutes. I am going to fast forward this because it's going to be a little boring. It's probably going to take up a good chunk of the first day here, but I want to knock down pretty much all these trees along like this big portion of the hill here. That way I can utilize all of this for my farmland. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, and we are back. Look at that. A little bit of cleared it out quite a bit. So obviously there's still plenty of trees off over there and still some up over here, but the bulk of the area that I'm going to most likely be planting these fields in is pretty much cleared out. I think I might actually go and snag these ones real quick as well. Let me take these guys down real quick, kind of just showing you guys how I've been really going about it. Again, why I try and get to a bronze pickaxe as soon as possible, or bronze axe, sorry, as soon as possible, because it does chop down trees much faster. And then real quick, just pull out the shovel and dig up the stump, because again, these trees I do not want to grow back, right? I want them out of the way entirely so I can have pretty much as much freedom as I need to be planting these fields. So, got these out of the way. Now, what I'm going to do, another thing I want to share with you guys is something that I didn't know, when I first started the game, but the field and the way you lay out your fields, right? Like, if you go back into these fields here, it's like now that I have, all this room, I can basically come all the way up to this corner here, which is where I'm probably going to want to end up starting with some of my fields. But let's just say I wanted to go crazy and build as big of a field as I can, right? 16 by 16. I think that's like 256 plots or something like that if you do the math out. This is a huge freaking field, and you would think that makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, let's do the biggest field so I can have so much flax and so much wheat and so much whatever. One thing that I do not also love about the way the workers actually work on the fields is that only one worker per field can be doing one job. So when you plant a field, like you just saw me do, you have to actually pull out a hoe and you have to till that plot of land first. Then you got to go down and lay fertilizer. Then you have to go and till it one more time with the hoe, and then you have to finally plant the actual seed and sow it, right? So when you first have a field, there are 4 tasks and steps that need to be done before that plant is even going to start growing, right? Eventually, once the fields have been completely tilled, then it's only 3. Every season, you just have to refertilize, retill, and then resow. So it does get easier after you get them all tilled the first time, obviously. But still, those are 3 things that have to get done in order to plant one thing. So when you have a field, a giant field, I mean, in a perfect world, that one field, though, is only going to have one person tilling, one person fertilizing, and one person sowing the plants, planting the seeds, right? So if you have a bunch of different fields, like, it's just going to not be that efficient when you can't have multiple people doing multiple of the same jobs each field, right? So it almost makes more sense to have more smaller fields. That way they can all kind of just task that one field themselves and then move on to the next one. This is honestly just what I've kind of seen online in the community and from other like feedback that I've again seen from other people playing the game too, right? Is it just seems to make more efficient sense to have the smaller fields versus these giant fields. So one thing that I've always kind of loved, honestly, because I'm a little OCD. I just like having, more easier numbers to work with. So I do kind of like doing a 10 by 15 field because then I know there are 150 plots in that field. And that's a pretty good amount, right? And that's just an easy way to kind of work it out for me. So I know that's not a huge field, maxed out by any means, but it's also not really considered a small field either. Before I start laying these out, I do actually want to show you guys another little trick, right? If you notice, I do play a lot of the game in first person. I do like that. I've always been a big fan of first person. Gets you the most immersed. But I do like to go into the third person view to kind of have a little bit more of a view of what's around me. Another trick to doing that is actually going into camera mode on photo mode here. So this does allow you to really zoom out and be like, okay, here is what I'm working with. Like I have this massive open land right here that is just up on this cliffside, and I kind of want to start it. I want to try and get it as lined up as possible. Like if you see right up there where those crossroads are, or that kind of little fork in the road is, I kind of like to have things lined up as best I can. So I'd like to have the field kind of starting where that crossroads is and coming straight down and then working its way off into this direction. So what I'd like to do is kind of come up over here. And it's like, of course, I don't want to have to be building like these fields so far away, from the village. But again, at the end of the day, this is not that far. Like in real life and back in the medieval days, like the fields were not like in the middle of town. They're generally going to be on the outskirts somewhere. And it's funny, but if you look at the examples too, like if we go to Piastovia here, like this is the whole village all in this circle. And their fields are like pretty much right outside of it, right? On the outskirts, or not around the fence or anything. So it's kind of like the same idea here. So I want to start up here and go into my field and try. I don't want it like right on the edge because eventually like I'm going to want some fencing and things like that. But I'm kind of, again, limited to working with this kind of west to east, north to south layout. So if I go out all the way to 15 or 16 plots here, I might just honestly do the 16. I mean, 16 by 10 is still 160 plots. Easy numbers to kind of work with here. So if I come out to 10, I think that was 15 by 10. It freaking chopped up on the last second there. This son of a bitch. All right, so here's one example. There's one field right at the top here. Now, I'm going to real quick. So let's go here. I like to kind of have the fields all spread apart a little bit. Because again, I just think it makes a lot of sense to have like roads and pathways between them all. So when I have them lined up, bring this one out, to 10 plots on that side. And then I want to see if I did actually cut out at the 15 up here, or yeah, it was 15. Okay, so we're just going to do the 15 by 10, like I said, just for my own little OCD there. So far, I kind of like how it's coming together, and there'll be enough room right here in the middle to where you can easily just have like a path going down the center there. And I'm going to probably even end up utilizing like this or this section over here. I don't think I have it yet. Yeah, it's definitely not unlocked yet, but like a barn. So this are the other things to kind of consider is you will need to have a barn, which is a pretty big building. You're going to need to have at least multiple wood farm sheds. Usually do two of them because you're going to have 4 farmers on each one. So probably going to want at least 2 of those at some point. And then a windmill nearby as well. The windmill is also pretty big. That's going to take a long time till we unlock that for sure. But these are things that you are going to want, in your fields. And the other downside to kind of doing it on a hill like this is you can't really place too many buildings at an angle, right? So there's some you can, as you saw, like with some of the housing, you can have basically like a wooden foundation, but you still want to be somewhat, cognizant of that. So let's just kind of keep going along with our fields here, just getting a decent little layout, trying to leave room for the pathways and whatnot, and just do another quick 10 by 15 here. Ooh, so here we go. This is something that's gonna honestly probably kill my OCD. I don't love that I can't do 10 by 16 here, and I also don't want to bring it right up on these rocks because eventually, again, I'm gonna want to have a pathway being able to come across that. So what I'm gonna do is actually drop that real quick, and I'm gonna come back over up here and do the same thing. I'm gonna line it up a little bit and be like, all right, here's enough room for a path in between. And I'm going to see if I have enough room to do 15 by 10. Should be able to here. Yep, another 15 by 10 field. And now I might have to remove that tree. Let's just kind of see here, but let's go back over to where they meet so I make sure it's all lined up. So I want to make sure everything is lined up as best I can. These are the one things where you kind of have to do it if you want it to look nice. Can I make this happen? There we do. Yes, we can. Alright, 15 by 10. Right? Yeah. I think that's it. Ooh, it's a little off right there. What's up with that? What happened? Was I over one notch? Oh, see, I was. See, that's going to kill me. Can't do that. So actually, that's another trick for you guys. I keep forgetting to do that. If you leave it on destroy mode, you can still build during this, and it does kind of help you get a better view on making sure it's all lined up. That's a little too far off. That should be good on both ends, right? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Now let's do that again. 10 by 15. There we go. Now it is officially lined up. So you can't see it on the map yet. Once you actually till everything, you'll be able to see, like if I go back to Piastovia, the examples, it's like once you till it, like this is actually an orchard right here, so it's a little bit different. But these are definitely the fields. So once you have everything tilled, then it will show up on the map. But until then, it's just kind of like nothing. But this is what I usually want to shoot for. I want to have 4 good-sized plots. That way, like realistically, every season, one of them is going to be oat, one of them is going to be wheat, and honestly, a lot of times I'll do 2 of them that are going to end up actually being flax because having flax and having tons of it is going to make you a lot of money in the game, and make sure you keep that going very easily. So I like how this is set up so far, and I do like kind of where it's laid out. This just it makes a lot of sense to me, and now it's still this is what I was trying to get into and why I didn't want to have a field going too far down here. Now what I'd rather do is go over into my farm and my fields here and plant a couple other ones, but keep them and instead of going 10 by 15, I want to go 5, right? Or no, it's 15 the long way, so like 6 and 7. Not going to be able to do it as nicely as I want, like 5 and 5. But if I build something like this, where it's like a 5 by 6, then I do at least one more. Not going to be perfect, so my OCD might get a little screwed up here. Maybe I can do this and it'll line up nice. Let me see. I don't know. Yeah, not really. Let me go back up here. I really do try and line things up. That's a personal problem, man. I got my OCD issues going on there. Yeah, let me try and come back down one more. Get to be like right here. That'll do it. And then coming down this way. So this is already going to be like another bigger field. I don't mind like having a little bit of a gap right there because I don't plan on putting a little road between those. I just think that looks a little bit nicer having that. But now these, for sure, these 2 little plots are just going to be for more vegetables and things like that. And then I kind of want to do the same thing over there. So I think this one was like a 5 by 6 and an 8 by 6. So like an easy way to still create some symmetry here is to kind of replicate that again. And this, at this point, guys, this is completely, personal preference, right? Like you can obviously have these things go on however you want. I just do like to have things lined up a certain way. So now if I do a 6 by 5, that's like you zoom out, now they're symmetrical for sure, so it makes a little bit more sense. And then I can kind of do the same thing, over here and have these lined up as best as I can. So make sure we're on the right side here, in the right location. That looks, oh, it's a little off. It's sometimes such a pain in the neck to get it lined up perfectly when you're like not right up on it. That also too far off? Yeah, it is. Alright, come on, one more try, one more try. that like right there. I think that's it. Perfect. Then same idea, a nice little 5 by 8. So now it's like fairly symmetrical that there's little gaps in between, and they both just kind of make sense. And now I have 4 smaller plots for like a lot of those vegetables and things like that. And there's still plenty of room to honestly make more of those, right? But I'm also trying to consider, okay, where's the barn going to go? Where's the windmill going to go? Where are the farm sheds going to go? So I don't want to get too crazy. And this is just kind of like how I go about it, guys. So I haven't really been fully keeping track of time here. I don't know how long this video has been so far, to be honest, but as you guys know, I'm trying to keep them pretty short and sweet. What I want to do real quick is actually just go to sleep. When I was chopping down some trees along the cliffside here, like this one actually completely fell, so I couldn't even get to this guy. Let's clean that out real quick. But I'm actually going to go sleep, so we have some more light. And then the only other thing I want to do before I think I end this video for us is kind of create the roads, essentially. So that way you can kind of just see what I mean by just trying to get everything set up and having a field laid out fairly early on in the game, so I know what I can do and build things around it. So when I was actually knocking down all those freaking trees, man, I ended up getting almost 90 logs. Pretty good little chunk of sticks. Doing some feathers. Must have picked up a stone in the middle there. So yeah, good amount of stuff. So let's try and go to sleep real quick so that I can get back up there with some light and try and start lining up some of the roadways as well. Because again, I also like having roads lined up fairly early on too. That way, again, you just know how things are going to be, and you can kind of start working around those. I mean, those are also very easy to edit and delete and replace later on in the future, too. It's one thing that is nice about the game is the roads don't require any resources or anything, and you can just boom, 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 place them down super easily. So let's go over here. This is what I want to do. Where's my windmill? Or not the windmill, the freaking... I was going to get a drink of water real quick, but I'll survive for now. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run right over here where I had that road kind of ending. And now I'm going to continue it going up this little hill here. Again, trying to play off the topography as best I can and make it make the most sense. I think this is not too crazy steep that it's like, you know, weird, right? But I think it does work just fine. So I want to have this coming up here. I also want to zoom out real quick and just see, okay, where do I really want to take this? I think I'm going to have it come just right up over here and start working my way into the fields that way. And then I'm going to have it kind of even veer off this other direction here. Honestly, yeah, let me actually do this real quick. I kind of see what I want to do here. So I'm actually going to delete this. I'm going to start over really quick. I might go back and replace those in the exact same spot. Who knows? But I want to have like an idea here. So I like it coming up the hill. And then I do kind of... I'm going to actually leave this open just to have a better view of where these roads are. And I do kind of want it to come over at like a little bit of an angle. And then essentially go all the way down this way. Because again, I know this is like the front of the field, you know, the start of it right here. And I'm going to want another entrance coming up over there, of course, too. I don't know if I'm going to really get into that right this second, but of course I want another way to get up here on both ends. Because luckily this cliffside only happens to be right there. And now there's a nice entrance on the back side of the village, or, you know, I should say the east side, and then another one along the west side. So all these things are just kind of what I try to consider. Ooh, I didn't even have that lined up perfectly. God, that's going to kill me. Alright, let me pause real quick while I fix that. Alright, there we go. Now it's lined up. I had a feeling earlier when I placed it that the gap was a little bit tighter than it was over there. Thank God. Okay, that's done. Sorry about that, guys. Again, very OCD. Want to make sure things are lined up and just looking good. Rather get that done now than later. So, same idea. I like to build these roads that are going to come all the way up around the entire field. So this tree is going to get removed for sure, but I'm not going to focus on that right this second. I want to get my roads going all throughout here and just get everything laid out. That way, again, just to kind of wrap up this video, you guys see essentially how I like to go about getting the layouts set up here. So let's keep rolling. get this, because I'm going to connect this to, I want to kind of have this one be like right here. Then I'm going to take it down this way. And I do want this to connect right here. That's what I was trying to see. Because the thing is, I don't necessarily want it to just be a straight shot right up here, then connecting into this road, because this is what I'm going to call this like the King's Road, like in medieval days. Like this is a road that was just already there, but it's kind of a dead end anyway. So it's like I don't want to build really into that. That just doesn't make sense to me. No one's coming from this direction. It's literally a giant cliffside along the edge of the map, basically. So we don't really care about that. I like this. It also looks good from a bird's eye view. I actually like that layout. It's like, okay, boom, swoops right up and then comes this way, and it's going to loop around over here as well, and that's just bringing you to the farm. Um, I think it's good to note that at some point I will make another entrance to my village, probably in this area. It might be around this area, right? That makes a little bit more sense. I mean, still, even this road doesn't lead to any villages. If anything, it leads to the freaking bandit camp way up there. But I think that also makes sense to have an entrance somewhere up here. And that is definitely something to consider at some point, but not going to get too into that right this second. But yeah, I just want to wrap this up, guys. I want you just to again see, ultimately the way that I line things up here, and why it is, I think, important to get this started. Because again, I'm not going to do any farming, honestly, in the fall here. Like, obviously, as I was showing you earlier, it's like the only thing really I like to plant in the fall is going to be rye. But I'm not going to get too focused on that. But honestly, I could change my mind. There have definitely been some playthroughs for sure where I do end up going into placing just like 50 rye. That way, come spring, I now have like more straw and things like that. So if we have time this fall, maybe I will do it. But it's all going to be, me doing it. I'm not going to go probably recruiting any farmers um, this month at all. I think I might save that a little bit towards the winter time. That way, once spring rolls around, now I actually have a few people that I can get rocking and rolling on some things. So there we go. This is pretty much get that going there. I want to try and make this look just a little cleaner. There we go. It looks a little cleaner for us. All right. So far, looking so good. I'm also going to do this path going down the middle as well. And then, you know what I actually am going to end up having to do? I probably will end up planting a little bit of rye this season, mainly because of something I had mentioned earlier, right? I do want to try and get the barn and the farm stands laid out as well. Of course, the windmill, it's going to take a while to unlock that, but the barn and the farm stands, I'll be able to unlock that pretty early, surprisingly. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Now, if you at least look on the map, I mean, I haven't tilled anything, but now you can kind of see like how this is all, coming together a little bit. I think I'll even do a nice little path coming through on this end as well to kind of again just separate the big plots versus the little plots. And I think mentally the reason why I like to do all the pathways going between them is because until I get them tilled, now on like that map view or even like a bird's eye view, it's just easy for me to see, okay, these are where my plots are. So yeah, now going back to the map here, you zoom in, it's like perfect. All right, boom, bang, boom. There are my four big ones and my other four little ones laid out right there, and that just really kind of helps me tie it all together. So last thing I'm gonna do, yeah, I am gonna just try and pull this in here to finish this off, and I don't know if I want to have it go sharp down this way. I don't know if that would look good. Maybe it will. I might just go this way for now, and then maybe in the future I might change my mind. But I don't hate how this looks. This is kind of like a nice little opening here, and it kind of brings us back to what might end up being like a central part of the village. Like this windmill, or I keep calling it a windmill, the freaking well is definitely going to be moved for sure. But I do love the idea of where it is so far. But yeah, that doesn't actually look bad. First person mode, you coming up here. I like these trees. I mean, at some point, I don't plan on taking these stumps down anytime soon, but I think this makes sense. It just brings you a nice gradual incline up into where the farm is, and you still get a good view of everything. And like I mentioned, might be able to put a farm stand over here, or a farm shed, sorry, and then, the barn and everything else over here. And we'll definitely get into that stuff, next episode for sure. But again, to keep our videos time frame down, I definitely want to cut it here. I'm sure I'm over the 30-minute mark, or at least close to it. But appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you guys back here soon enough. Mac Dad Games, baby. Thank you.